for the non-Lord did not say to the people, Amen, for he is not holy. Repeat after me. For he is not holy.
For he is not holy.
Amen. Cross yourself. Unless you don't want to.
I'm crossing myself as best I can.
What are some other things that people in the Catholic Church say when they're singing? Something like that. I would do one of those like musical ones where like everybody's supposed to repeat after you.
Yeah, and then are we gonna take a drink?
Yes, that's an important part. And then in my church, you would also drink one for the homies as well. In the beginning, there was a really long line. You should have gotten there a lot earlier than the beginning. Never early enough.
I love that. Awesome, cool.
In the beginning, the producers just didn't really know what they were doing, so it was very disorganized. But they did their best. My name is Sydney Davis Jr., and I am drinking Rocktown whiskey from Arkansas. Shout out to my hometown over there in Arkansas, but nobody else, because my hometown is like a liberal dot in the middle of a red state, so only my hometown. And I'm going to tell you the story of Adam and Eve, but I now live in Phoenix and I don't have any friends, so I'm going to tell it to you as though I'm spilling tea. I'm going to tell you this story as though we're getting together for brunch and I'm just spilling hot goss that I've been waiting to tell you all this time, if that's cool.
Yeah, go for it. Tell us the story.
All right, so first of all, let me take a drink for suspense. Okay, so let me tell you about these people. So Adam, right? Well, hold on. There's lore. Let me go back. So once upon a time, everything was going totally fine. We did not need anything to change. There was no reason for anything to be new or to be different. It was fine. And then God was like, you know what, though? What if I shook some shit up? What if I took what's working just fine right now? We don't need anything else. And I made else, and I brought it to you. So he's like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a planet. So he makes this planet. And then he's like, you know what else I'm going to do? I'm going to put stuff on this planet. So he puts stuff on this planet. And then, hey, you know what? I can get behind that. Loves me a terrarium, right? Like I am on all the terrarium subreddits, the aquarium subreddits. Love this. So then he's like, I don't know, something's missing. And, right? And the giraffes were like, what's missing? And he was like, oh, I know. Free will and like, fuck shit. So he's like, you know what I'm going to do? Things are going totally fine. We don't need to change anything, which is why I'm going to change some shit. I think I'm going to put sentient beings on this planet. So he does. So he puts Adam, right? He puts a guy named Adam, which I don't know about you, but like dudes named Adam are usually like shady as fuck. Like Adams and Joshes, like avoid them. And you can like come at me. I don't care. That's true. I've never met a guy named Adam who was like good for my life, you know? I've also never met a man who did jujitsu who was good for my life, but that's okay. So anyway, so God's like, I'm going to put this brown belt in jiu-jitsu named Adam. I'm going to make him the first human being on Earth, and I'm going to see how it goes. And then all the animals were like, that, I don't know, things are going fine. How they are, do you really need this? And God was like, yes. Just like, wait till the end, right? Stick with me is what God said. So they were like, okay. So God creates Adam, and Adam's like, where are all the bitches at? And God's like, oh, I never thought about that. I should probably like put somebody else on this planet with you, right? Because you're lonely. You're like the only one. And eventually there's going to be a flood. So there needs to be two of you at some point. And Adam was like, yeah, sure. I would love, because, I think God probably thought, like, God knew, even though they weren't around yet, like, I think God already kind of knew what an incel was. And so I think he was like, to keep that from coming any sooner, I think we should bring women onto the earth. So he waits until Adam's asleep and like non-consensually takes one of his ribs. Why? I don't know. He didn't need a rib to make Adam, but for whatever reason, he needed a rib to make Eve. There's a lot of holes in this plot. I don't understand. If you know the answer, let me know. So he takes a rib and he makes Eve. And Adam wakes up and he's like, oh my God, look, there's a woman here. And Eve is like, I don't know what I'm doing here. This is news to me. And Adam was like, I think we're supposed to date. And Eve was like, I don't think that's true. And God was like, actually, that's true. And she's like, well, fuck. Okay. Like, I guess that's what I'm here for. And so she wakes up in a hellscape, right? She's just like in a relationship. And so then God's like, oh, you know what would make this great? Like, I know that I brought you to here, and I know you didn't have like any decision in the matter, any choice, but I'm thinking, hear me out, I'm thinking that I will give you free will, and you can literally do whatever you want. And they were like, oh my God, that's amazing. He's like, except that. And he points to a tree, and he's like, you can't do that. You can't eat those apples off that tree. And Adam was like, well, this would have been a lot easier if you didn't tell us we could eat apples. I didn't know we could eat apples until you just told me. And now I feel like you're telling me to tempt me so that I'll eat this apple. And God was like, just wait till the end. Like, stick with me. And they were like, okay. And so God was like, you can literally do whatever you want except eat an apple off this tree. And then Adam was like, oh, well, you put this tree there. So why don't you just yeet the tree? Why don't you just like get rid of it? And God was like, no, that's too easy. And Adam was like, okay. And Eve was like, I literally just work here. Like, I just woke up this morning. So they know the rules, right? They get it. So they're just living in this garden, right? Which I imagine was probably pretty nice, right? Like, you don't have any loud neighbors. There's no such thing as trash yet. There's no such thing as litter. The world is not too hot. There's probably dinosaurs. Like, I imagine for like a quick minute, it was actually pretty cool to be Adam and Eve. I hope that he didn't talk about like Rick and Morty too much for her liking, but you know, we'll never know. So then God comes down and he's like, you guys haven't eaten from this tree, right? And Adam and Eve was like, no, of course not. You said not to. And God was like, but you know you can. Like, if you want to, you can. And Adam and Eve were like, oh, wait, we can? And he's like, no. But, like, if you want to, you can. And they were like, so we can? And he was like, no. But if you wanted to, you could. And Eve's like, I don't really understand. And Adam's like, got it. So God just disappears. I don't know if he's lurking. I don't know if he's making other worlds. I'm not sure what God was doing during this period of time. That narrator is, one, unreliable, but two, not really a big presence in the whole book. So Adam and Eve are hanging out, and Eve is like, you know what? Like, what even is an apple? Like, I'm going to go, like, what is an apple? Like, why aren't we allowed to eat this? I'm going to go check it out. So she goes and checks it out, and then there's a snake there. And he's like, hey, my name's Donald Trump. Like, I'm here to just, like, make everything better, you know, make eating great again. And she's like, I don't know. I don't trust you. And he's like, trust me. And she's like, I don't. And he's like, you can eat this apple. And she's like, yeah, I know God said that. He said we could. And the snake's like, well, you should. And she's like, no, it seems like a bad idea. She's like, I've only been around for, like, 7 days at this point. But I can tell you that the one thing I do know is that I'm not supposed to eat this apple. And the snake's like, well, you know, God told me that you're allowed to eat this apple if you want. And I know that he told you that you can eat this apple if you want. Did he really say, like, what would happen if you ate it? And she was like, not really. He didn't really say much. And the snake was like, okay. But he did say you could eat it. And she was like, yeah, he said I could, but he said I shouldn't. And the snake's like, that doesn't make any sense. And she's like, yeah, I know. So he's like, for the bit, just for the bit, I just want to see what happens if you eat the apple. And she's like, I don't think that's a good idea. And the snake's like, no, literally just for the bit. Like, if you get in trouble, I will totally tell God that I told you that you could eat this apple. And Eve's like, that doesn't sound like a good idea. Honestly, this part's not in the Bible, but I wholeheartedly believe that Adam was there. I believe Adam was there. Because you're not going to tell me that there's a naked man and a naked woman, and they're the only two human beings on earth, and he was not, like, following her like a dog the whole time, you know, just like, come on, baby, like, come on, I paid for your dinner, like, it's, you know, like, whatever. I 100% believe that Adam was there in that moment. Again, didn't make it into the Bible, but Bible was written by men, so, like, why would they put this part in there, right? I think he was there. So Adam's like, come on, be cool, right? And Eve's like, no. And they're like, come on, be cool. And she's like, I really don't think this is a good idea. And finally, I think, in my opinion, they, like, dogged her. And finally, they're like, eat the apple, you know? So she ate the apple to get them to shut the fuck up. Because she's like, I've been on here, on this earth, like, 6 days, and I can't deal with this. So she takes a bite of the apple, and they both go, oh, like, you weren't supposed to do that. And she was like, but you guys wouldn't get off my dick about it. And they were like, no, but you weren't supposed to. In the Bible, like, God, like, magically finds out that she ate this apple. Honestly, who do you think told God? Like, do you really think God was paying that much attention? Or do you think, like, one of these snitches went back and told God? In my opinion, in my abridged version, I think Adam was there, goaded her into it, because he was already over it. They'd already hit it, right? He was ready to move on. And he goaded her into it. She ate the apple. And he just, like, didn't expect to get in trouble. Like, he thought, what Adam thought was that he would tell God what happened and God would just send him a new girl. And then God was like, no, that's not how that works. First of all, you only have, like, 8 ribs or whatever. How many ribs do you have? I don't know. Probably 8. Maybe there were fewer back then. And God was like, no, you're both in trouble. And Adam was like, what? Why me? Why not just her? Like, she was the problem. And Eve was like, literally, they would not shut the fuck up until I ate it. And he's like, I don't want to hear it from either one of you. You failed the assignment. So then they get kicked out of the Garden of Eden, which must honestly really suck. Because, like, I live in the middle of the Sonoran Desert. And I can tell you that if I was at the only watering hole with plants and then I was locked out of it, I'd be fucked. So I don't know how they continued to survive. I'm not sure. But they did. And then their kids, like, got in a fight and one of them killed the other. But essentially, because Eve ate the one apple that she was, like, allowed to eat but shouldn't eat, you know, like, the rules were really, you know, God was like, you can but don't, but you can but don't, because she ate that apple. That's why I'm on my period today. And that's it.
Incredible. That was one hell of a story. You know, I loved the artistic spin on this, and you know, some of that interpretation I totally agree with, you know.
Context
like,
clues, man.
Yeah,
like,
context
where
clues.
was Adam?
Exactly.
Like, if Adam wasn't there, that's fine. Where was he at? Why does the Bible not say where he was at? Because you think if it was an alibi that he needed everybody to know, it would say, like, Eve was in the garden fucking around with these apples, and Adam was working really hard for the family. You know what I mean? Like, it would say, wouldn't it? And, like, it doesn't say. Where was he? I think he was there, and I think he was doing that whole frat boy stuff, where he was like, come on, be cool, eat the apple. And then the snake was like, eat it, eat it, eat it, eat it. And she realized, like, oh, I'm literally the only, okay, fine. Like, they're not going to get off me about this, you know?
Maybe we need to get you to come back and talk about Lilith.
I can talk about Lilith.
Oh, do you want to get into Lilith now? You can if you want. I'll go back in the basement if you want to talk about Lilith. Like, spill the tea, girl. Spill it.
I will talk about Lilith. Oh my God. Sorry. I just saw a hummingbird fly up to where my hummingbird feeders usually are and then, like, sadly fly away. That was really upsetting. So I'm going to mute myself for 1 second because my birds also saw the hummingbird. Okay. So can you hear my birds? Are they loud?
I can hear them a little bit, but we're good.
Are we good? Okay. So here's my beef with Lilith. Lilith was the only woman. She was the only girl's girl. And she got, like, deleted from the Bible. She got deleted. They said, highlight, delete. So if I can go back and I can retell the story with Lilith being there, or, like, my version of events that I think happened when Lilith was there that got yeeted out of the Bible, let me know and I can tell that version.
Tell whichever story you want to tell.
Okay. So Lilith, for anybody who doesn't know, Lilith was apparently the horrible bitch. Here, I'm going to mute myself for 1 second because the birds are going crazy. Could you hear any of that? I was yelling. I was going, hey.
No, you're muted, so you're good.
Okay,
but
good.
I can't promise I cannot promise that I won't use any of this B-roll in the.
Oh no, use it all. Like, go for it. Like,
we're using all the footage.
Yeah, I figured we were using all of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So first of all, I only found out about Lilith when I was literally, like, 31. The story of Lilith and the magazine where I read about Lilith for the first time was literally where the idea for my podcast was born. Because I found out about Lilith and I was like, why have I never heard of this before? So for anybody who's not aware, Lilith was they'll tell you it was Adam's mistress. I say she was the only girl's girl that existed in the Bible. She was the one who had Eve's back, in my opinion. I think that God actually made Adam 2 wives. One of them was, like, no, I'm not going to do what you say. Like, no, I don't have to deal with your bullshit. I'm going to go on. And he's like, well, I'm literally the only man on earth. And she was like, fucking so? And that's where lesbianism was born. She was like, Eve and I have a great thing going. Like, I don't understand what the problem is. The reason that Adam and Eve made the Bible is because that's the subservient one. That's the one that did as she was told, was a good wife, and that's the one that they want everybody to model their behavior off of. But she's also the one that like committed a sin, so you can use her as like a, you know, like a Madonna whore type thing. You can be like, hey, Eve had it all good, and even she fucked up, and now that's why you have a period. So blame Eve. When Lilith was the one that was like, actually, none of this makes sense. I'm just here to have a good time. I'm just here to fulfill my biological needs that God gave me and have sex with Adam. And so then she did, and she was like, oh, but now I got to listen to him talk, which isn't half as much fun. And in my opinion, Lilith was supposed to, or her goal was to lead Eve down like more of like a feminist kind of journey. Lilith was supposed to be like, hey girl, I don't really like the way that Adam talks to you. I don't really like the way that God talks to you. I think they're trying to frame you for some dumb shit. Like, I think you and I should go off and start something different over here and you know, do that whole thing. And then Eve was like, I don't know, but God said. And so Lilith was like, well, remember, God's a dude too, apparently, according to all this literature. So why do you think he has your back? And then Eve was like, I don't know. And Eve was the girl who, like, I don't know if anybody listening to this has ever had to send a hey girly message. You know, the one where you're like going out with a guy and then you find out he's like married or he's in a relationship and you send like a hey girly because like you wouldn't be able to sleep at night if you didn't tell the girl like what was going on. Lilith was the hey girly. But when you send a hey girly message, you know 90% of the time the girl's going to stay. She's just going to stick around with whatever fuck shit's going on. So I think Lilith was the first hey girly in history. She was like, hey girly, listen, this is really weird and I don't like it. And this whole, like, walking around naked for the male gaze thing, this doesn't work for me, right? Like, it was fun. We did it. It was all right. We're the first human beings to ever have sex, like, in the history of ever. But this isn't working out. I think you and I are in danger. And then Eve was like, I don't think so. And Lilith was like, well, I'm going to get out of here. Why don't you come with me? And we can lead Adam, and we can go do our own thing. And Eve was like, you know, she was the first, like, I don't want to call her a pick-me because she didn't have any other options, but, like, Eve was the first, like, no, I'll just take it. And that's, like, why we have periods. But Lilith was a badass. Like, you should look up Lilith. Lilith, like, was I think, history's first one-night stand with Adam, and he didn't like it because she was like, oh, I don't want to sit here and talk afterward. Like, I don't want to stick around for brunch. Like, we did the thing, and now I'm going to go do my own thing. And he was like, how dare you? Eve would never do that. And she was like, fine, go find Eve. And so he did. But I think Lilith is an unsung hero, and I think the reason she wasn't included in the Bible is because she had thoughts and opinions. And they were like, ugh, you know?
Snap. That's intense. You know, we got into some real philosophy there with this last one. If you were to decide, who would you have a one-night stand with? Would it be Adam, Eve, or Lilith? Who would you pick?
Listen, I'm married now, so I'm going to say Vincent Johann.
Okay. If before you were married.
So I think I would. I think I would have done my duty with Adam, but I think I would have like met up with Lilith. You know what I mean? Like I think I would have.
Yeah.
I think I would have done what I was supposed to do with Adam because that's like what God said, and I would have only been on Earth for like 2 weeks. But I think I would have had like a girl crush on Lilith, and I think I would have like at least like. Did I ever tell you about the time that I accidentally went on a lesbian date?
All right, cool. So, that night, he took the cup. He drank. Gave thanks to you. And said to his disciples, take, drink. I think it's wine. No, it's No, it's an apple cider. It's an apple cider. But he took the cup, drank from it, gave thanks to you, and then said, take, drink, this is my body, poured out for you for something. So, we do this in remembrance of the Lord. Praise be to the Lord. All right.
Praise be.
That's right. Let us something.
Oh,
All right.
doing this. Get your drink.
I think I'm about there. What do I need to introduce myself.
Yeah.
Tell the story.
Well, I got a couple. Yeah. Before we get to that piece, I have to ask you
What
an
else?
important question.
Okay.
If you had to wrestle God, what would your strategy be?
Oh my God. Oh, dude. Yeah. I think if I wrestled God, I'd come out like the Heartbreak Kid. You know, Shawn Michaels, right? Sweet chin music, that motherfucker. You know? That's what I'm saying. Like, I know that a lot of people are going to be like, well, that's not wrestling, man. It's like MMA or whatever. Like, fuck you. Yeah, I'd just kick that motherfucker across his face. Like, right away. That, why not? You know? Look. All's fair in love and war, okay? And what that means is, if some dickhead shows up at your camp in the middle of the night, starts wrestling you, I don't give a damn. You grab a fucking aluminum baseball bat, slap him across the face, like, just get it done. You know, that's just whoop his ass. There's no technique. Fuck that shit. You know, like, oh, I'm gonna do like a grappling, a half Nelson, whatever. Fuck that shit. Kick him in the balls. My name's Secular Rarity. I'm drinking an apple cider, and we're talking about the time that Jacob wrestled God. So, a little bit of backstory. If you don't know a lot about Jacob, he was kind of a dick as a kid because, like, he screwed his brother over, Esau, with, like, inheritance or whatever. And where we pick up in the story is, like, Jacob and Esau had been doing their shit for years, and they hadn't talked to each other. And one day, Jacob's, like, walking around the desert with his goats, and he's like, that's a good goat. That's a pretty good goat. That's not a great goat. And some angel comes up to him and he's like, hey man, I just saw your brother and he's coming your way. And Jacob's like, oh shit. Do you think he's still like pissed at me or shit? And the angel's like, I don't know, man. But like, he's got like all these dudes with him, right? It's like 400 fucking men that Esau has. And they're like walking towards Jacob. And so Jacob gets all freaked out. And he's like, okay, look. What we need to do is I'm going to take some of my slaves. And I'm going to like give them a bunch of stuff. I'm going to give them like goats. And like gifts and stuff. And I'm just going to like send them out in front of me. And so Esau will get all these gifts. And then, like, he won't be mad at me, right? And it's not a bad plan, honestly. But it is kind of weird, because basically the way that it would work out is, like, for, like, a couple of days. For a couple of days, these servants would come up to... Well, they're slaves. They're not servants. They're fucking slaves. So let's not pretend. They'd, like, walk up to Esau out of nowhere with, like, all these goats and donkeys and shit. And they'd just be like, these are your brothers, but he just wants you to have them, whatever. And then finally, like, Jacob would show up. So he does that, right? And by the way, like, and this will be really important in a second. they list out how many fucking camels and donkeys and shit that like Jacob gives, okay? It hang on. I've got it here. It says 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 female camels with babies, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys, okay? So it goes through fucking detail to list that for some reason. And this will be important in a second, okay? So after a couple of days, Jacob sends all these slaves out, all these fucking gifts and shit. And finally, one night, just middle of the night, Jacob wakes up and he sends his wives, multiple, plural, his wives, and slaves and sons. He motherfucker wakes up. Motherfucker wakes up in the middle of the night and just goes around and is like, hey guys, get up, fuck, get up, leave, just get out of here, just leave the camp. And takes all their fucking shit and they all just leave and they all like go, forward towards meeting Jacob's brother, right? And immediately Jacob is wrestling with some stranger. Like, there is no explanation. There is no... Remember how many donkeys we talked about just 5 seconds ago? Like, it literally says... Okay, here's the line. It says, after he sent them across the stream, he sent over all of his possessions. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled him until daybreak. That sounds to me like a cover for like a gay hangout. Like, these guys were fucking each other. This is one of the first queer stories ever in the Bible. Like, Jacob was definitely hanging out with some young dude in his camp, and he was just like, hey, wives, like slaves, like sons, get the fuck out of here. I just need some time to myself, right? But they wrestled until daybreak, right? And I don't know how this story gets any more interesting, right? But it does, because all of a sudden, out of nowhere, when Jacob is winning, this random stranger, who again, I'm just pretty confident they were banging, you guys. I'm pretty confident they were having sex. But this random guy wrestling Jacob until morning grabs his dick. Now, it says in the Hebrew, it says he grabbed his thigh, okay? But there's actually a lot of scholarship to tell us that this was a euphemism. Like the inner thigh was a common Hebrew euphemism for dick, okay? So this guy losing this battle, which again, I kind of think they were fucking, but this guy reaches out, grabs Jacob's dick, and apparently that's not a problem, because Jacob just like right after that is like, hey man, I'm not going to let you go unless you give me a blessing. Like, this guy reaches out, grabs Jacob by the dick, and Jacob's just like, whoa, hang on, man, bless me first, Like,
at least buy me dinner or something.
That's right. And the guy's like, this is great. Again, remember all that context we gave for the fucking donkeys? right? So dude grabs Jacob's dick. Jacob's like, whoa, man, give me a blessing. And the guy's like, yeah, sure, fine. Who are you, by the way? Like, what's your fucking name? And I'm not kink shaming or anything. Like, do you think, like, anonymous fucking gay sex, if that's what you're into, like, go for it. That's fine with me. I know there's a lot of different pastors and clergy members that have been, enjoying that for years. And I support them. I just wish they would, be open about it. As opposed to getting arrested in truck stop bathrooms or stuff. But that doesn't matter. It's not here or there. I'm just saying, like, look, here's the thing. Jacob fucking this dude. Dude's like, let me go. Jacob's like, no. Bless me. Guy's like, what's your fucking name? Jacob's like, my name's Jacob. And the guy's like, not anymore, bitch. Now it's Israel. Because you have wrestled with God. Okay. All right. I guess this guy is God. And Jacob's like, oh, cool, man. Who are you? And the guy's just like, nah, that doesn't really matter. Okay. Like, that's, and like, I wish I could tell you that was the end of the story. Because that alone would be enough of a weird ending. It's like, hey, this guy wakes up in the middle of the night, sends his entire family away, starts wrestling with some stranger randomly. The stranger grabs his dick, and at the end of it, the guy blesses him somehow. I wish that was the end of it. But the end of this story is actually, it says, I'm not even kidding. I'm just going to read it again. Therefore, to this day, the Israelites do not eat the tendon attached to the socket of the hip, because the socket of the hip was where Jacob was touched. Like, and again,
wow.
That's a euphemism for dick, which I've never needed an explanation for that in my life. I've never once needed an explanation for why a group of people are not, like, actively eating the dicks of the animals that they're killing. But, hey, here we are, and I thank the Bible. Because without that, I don't know, maybe we'd all be eating more dick.